Ladies and gentlemen, ATDF everything in that shelf presentation. You're now rocking with TDF everything. Spoiled rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome and welcome back, everybody.
Hey.
It's me, Daniel,
And this is Ben
on Spoiled Rotten.
on that shelf.
Boom. Well, we're not spoiling a TV show right now. We are spoiling something related to the DC, maybe or maybe not. It's Shazam.
It's a
Fury of the
feature
Gods.
film.
Yeah.
That's right. We're going big. We haven't.
Yes.
You're right. We haven't done film in a while. It's been a lot of
since
TV
Ant-Man.
lately. Well, since Ant-Man, yeah. But yeah. So it's always fun coming back to the theaters.
Yeah, so you get it. We spoil movies or TV shows. This time we're doing Shazam Fury of the Gods, but before we start, I guess just a rundown in case someone didn't watch the movie but kind of wants to get the references we're making. This is the second Shazam film, which finds Billy Batson Shazam a bit worried that maybe he won't be able to hold on to his family. In addition to feeling like he has some kind of, learning that he's got imposter syndrome, because he's like, well, there's other superheroes that do what I do better. So what is there even a point to me? And do I have a place moving forward, which seems very meta now. I don't know if it was when they made the movie, but it certainly takes on a meta turn now during that beginning fake therapy session where he's just like, you're just like, yeah, I mean, I guess he would be worried if he's got a place still moving forward.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, this is really on the nose right now. I really did like that therapy scene. It's the exact same from the trailers. And it's really, really fun because he of course describes a lot more detail. And yeah, it's very on the nose. Don't know if that was before or after, but really like that you pointed it out. Yeah, like an after like reshoot kind of thing, or
as you said, it's the same as in the trailer. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Fair enough.
They would have reshot. James Gunn, I mean, obviously, what's he gonna say? Has said that he didn't touch this movie. This was all in place before he took over.
Studio probably made a few edits with the cameos and all that kind of stuff.
I don't believe that, but yeah. I don't believe that part of what James Gunn said, but yeah. So that's the gist of it. Oh, sorry, and the daughters of Atlas come to take back their dad's powers.
Yep,
and they keep their magical realm thriving because it's dying off.
Yeah, it's trapped, it's secluded, and it's dying, and they need the tree of life. They need the tree of life to do it.
The golden apple that has golden seeds that will create the tree of life. Yes.
Yeah, and all of this is because Shazam, Billy Batson, makes bad decisions. Apparently,
I mean, I would have done what he did too, because
I know.
It's not like the wizard was like, oh, also don't ever break this.
Yeah, there was no warning labels or anything like that. It's just like, yeah, this wizard's fully aware that he's giving the powers to a kid. So it's just like, I can't blame him that much. Really can't. Right. Okay, which is fun. But they blame a lot of this movie on him, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, which I was like, there's a scene where the kids are all like, what the hell's wrong with you, Billy? And I'm like, they were right there, and like he doesn't even say it. He's like, I think he briefly says we were all there, but he's like, you guys watched me do it. Why are you acting so like I thought he would say that. Like, what do you mean you're surprised? Like, you watched me do this.
Yeah, I'm like, well, there's some of those scenes where I'm like, they're really coming down hard on him, like unnecessarily. It feels like for something that they were all complicit in. It's weird.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of weird choices in this movie. I will say overall, I still enjoyed it. It's true. It's not. Well, this isn't very high praise to me. It's like in the top 5 of the DCEU movies.
Yeah,
and it was 1 through 4, but it's. I was like, you know what? For me, the first one is clunky. I get what's good about it. The heart of
Yep.
it for sure
Mhm.
is what's good about it. But I'm just kind of it is not a movie I can rewatch very easily. Uh,
Yeah, it's
I
one of
say
those
that
movies
knowing that we're gonna have to rewatch it
yeah,
for the revisit, but like,
which I wish we actually got to time out a little bit better, because I
yeah,
wish I knew I had more criticisms from the first film, or remembered more of the criticisms I had from the first film going into this watching, because there's parts of this where I'm like, yeah, they're gonna have to explain that wizard thing, like why is he back, kind of deal, because
they explained
and
that
they
yeah,
did
he's just like,
sufficiently.
you thought I died, but that would have been easy for me. This is what happened to me.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I would have liked
He's
death
like, I would
compared
have
to
loved
this.
that. That would have been a luxury.
That
I
was
really
really
like the
funny.
wizard in this movie.
Yeah.
That is a strength of the movie. Freddy and the wizard
Oh
are
yeah.
big strengths of this movie.
Hmm. Hmm.
And for whatever reason, I really like the parents. They don't do much, so that's fine. So they don't have time to ruin the goodwill. But like, there's
Yeah.
something about their earnest like love for the kids that I'm like, I just like them. I'm
Mhm.
rooting for those parents.
I agree. The moment that the parents had me hooked at the first movie already, but this movie, the moment they were like, uh, God, what was the thing they do? They say or something like that. It's really, the parents really really get me in this movie because they're all supportive.
Yeah,
Oh, right. It's one of the punchlines in the car where he's like, "Gotta be honest, don't really know how to parent right now."
right.
And
The
I'm like,
mom
yes,
was
this.
because they're like, well, we're gonna go do this, and she's just like, I don't know.
I,
I don't know what to do.
it's like that's when they tell him like we're all superheroes and all that kind of stuff. It's really funny, and like there's a lot of this movie that I agree with you. I enjoyed a lot more than I thought I would.
Hmm.
That's one.
I don't think it's
Two,
properly marketed.
no, I agree, and again, I get why they wouldn't properly put the money into marketing this thing, but at the same time, it's like I feel bad for it because behind all the meta stuff that's going on, there's a decently cohesive movie behind this. There's some bad decisions, but I had fun.
So I would say
It's a
this.
family movie. I had
Yeah,
fun in
yeah.
it.
I think um the one sentence thesis
Mhm.
that I saw, I'm sure this isn't the main one, but it made sense to me is what they say, which is all or none. That seems to be the purveying like, and I think they mean that in more than just all of us or none
Mhm.
of us. They mean like all the information, or it's not, or it's none. Like everyone needs to be on the same page. It
Right.
can't just be that like you're doing what Billy's doing at the beginning of the movie, which is like, I'm just forcing you to do this. It needs to be that like you're taking into account everybody's needs,
Mhm.
including the parents. Like once the parents are on board, things go a lot better for them as well,
Mhm.
which is the main issue with the villains, the sister, or yeah, the daughters of Atlas. They're
Mhm.
not going to win because they're constantly at each other's necks,
Mhm.
which was a weird choice. I thought they made. We'll get into that later, but I think that's why I agree with you that overall it's cohesive, because anytime I'm like, meh, it's like, well, they followed through on that main idea, and it's not dug deep into, but it is touched on in most
Mhm.
elements of the movie. That
Mhm.
concept of like it needs to be all or I don't think the second part is or none, but do you need to put it all together? You can't compartmentalize. Is
Mhm.
basically what
Mhm.
I saw this movie was about. Don't
Yeah.
try and compartmentalize. You need everybody on board. Like if it's gonna only be successful if everyone's on board and everyone has the information.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't half-assed multiple things. Whole ass one thing for sure.
Yeah, I'll be all in. And so yeah, I think that that works, but there's just
Mhm.
I really do feel like watching in the theaters, I was really jazzed about it, but the more I thought about it, the more I was like, yeah, there was one thing throughout that I was just like, this just doesn't make sense to me, which is the daughters. But I don't know if you want to start with them.
Well, I want to hear obviously a lot of what you have to say about the daughters and all that kind of stuff. Um, yeah, let's start there. Let's talk about the daughters. So first and foremost, we got Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu. Those are the
And
daughters that
Rachel
we
Zegler,
and Rachel Zegler, who is given a soft reveal as
yeah, this is
a
what I mean by
villain.
the trailers. The guy, it wasn't probably marketed. It was very clear she's a daughter of Atlas through the
Yeah,
trailer. So I'm just like, what are we doing? I think the reason they couldn't probably trail it, I think, is because you only need two daughters. You didn't need
Yes.
three of these. And I
Mhm.
think Helen Mirren is the one that should go.
Mhm.
I like her as a performer, but um she talked about how confusing she thought it was and how she didn't really know what was going on. And I've heard people say that shines through in her performance, and I don't think that's true. I think she did the best with
What?
what she could do.
How do people see that in her performance?
Well,
Confusion?
I think what they're reacting to is what I was reacting to very viscerally throughout the movie, which is it
Mhm.
makes no sense that she's here.
Yeah.
Like she's
Why is she
constantly
here?
she's constantly like, this is what we're doing. And then as soon as Lucy Liu's like, of course, she's like, no, fuck you, stop that. What are you doing? That's too much. And it's like,
Yeah.
that's not really, you don't need that when you've got Rachel Zegler. Like Rachel Zegler is the person who's like, let's not do this so brutally. Like this
Mhm.
is what we need to. So you don't need one person on this end doing this and Lucy Liu, who I was like, I mean, go for it. Like this is what you're here for, revenge. Like go for
Yeah.
it. Like you're the
Yeah.
bad guy. Let them be the bad guys. And like Helen Mirren being a bad guy until she's annoyed that Lucy Liu is also being a bad guy and then playing I was just like, I understand that that could happen in real life, but we're
Mhm.
doing, and I don't just mean a superhero movie, but like a movie in general doesn't need 2 degrees of that nuance. You could
Yeah.
still, because you're doing interesting stuff with Rachel, and I get, because at first I was like, you don't need Rachel, but I understand you need the love interest for Freddie.
Mhm.
And my thing was always, I mean, she's 6,000 years old, so it's already an age difference. It doesn't really matter, but visually, I get why you wouldn't have Helen Mirren try and pretend she's a high school student. So
Yeah.
sure,
Yeah.
so sure,
Thank
Rachel
God.
Zegler needs to be she needs to look the way she does because she is actually like 20 or 21. Like she's actually closer to that age. So
Yes.
it really feels like you don't need the Helen Mirren character because she is confused. She's a confusing character. I don't think the
Mhm.
actor shows how confused she said she was. In my opinion, I felt like it's just a weird thing to have to play.
Yeah.
I'm sure she understood that she was being asked to do something that doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, it felt like it did feel very unnecessary. I'm like the entire time I'm like, "Uh, what's happening here? Like, okay, I get that.
everything she does, Rachel Zegler could have done, and that I just mean that like just rearrange their powers so she can do the dome and then undo the dome and seem like
Yeah.
she's gonna die, and then because that was the other thing was like when Lucy Liu killed Helen Mirren, I was like, oh, sick, like good, she's doing a
Yeah.
bad guy thing, like,
Yeah. I
and
agree.
she even gets to say like, I fucking killed my sister who is a god. You think I'm not gonna squash you out? And
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, but then
Good.
when it's like that didn't even kill her, I was like, oh
Yeah, that
well,
sucked. That
I
really
was like,
sucked. I was
okay.
like, oh man, like really? She's still alive? Like
And
went through the
again, I
center
like
of
Helen
her
Mirren,
chest.
so sure, I will watch more Helen Mirren, but I don't think it works to have three of them. I think the
I
trailers
agree with
kept
that.
trying to push it like there was only two of them, and that is the way it should have been.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with basically everything you just said. Because the entire time, every time Helen Mirren was on screen, I was like, wait, what are we doing here? I
Well,
don't
the first
understand.
scene, it's fine. Like
Yeah,
I was
before,
like, where the hell is? Because I just not because I read anything ahead. This was one movie where I was like, I don't care, so I just watched it blind. But
yeah,
like, it was very clear to me from the trailers that she is like they show her doing superpowers. I mean, she's obviously one of those sisters. Like, she's not a good. I mean, she'll
Mhm.
clearly eventually be a good guy, but she's not a good guy. So, like, if I'm looking at this visually, obviously she's the third one. But like, why isn't she there in that first scene? And I think it's because you don't need three of them. It's you just need the two. You
Mhm.
need the one that's like, I'm here to really get revenge, and the one that's like, I mean, we don't really need to like go overboard with this. We just need the golden apple so we can do what we need to do.
Yeah. One of them was just like, hey, I just want my home to be pretty again. I
And
want
then
to
you can
thrive.
reflect because
Yeah.
even when Rachel Zegler is like, I know I'm not using their name. I think her name is Anthea. When
Mhm.
Anthea's talking to Freddie and she's like, "Oh yeah, I had like she just says my sister is a jerk too." Like that way. I'm like, "Well, you've got two
Singular.
sisters.
Yeah.
Like you got two sisters." So it just didn't make it. It only really makes sense if there's just the two sisters.
Yeah.
Because like, yeah, we already know what Freddie means by "I've got a controlling brother," but when she
Mhm.
says yeah, my sister's controlling. He's like, well, you have the line is I have a controlling sister too, or my sisters are controlling.
Hmm.
But like that was the weird thing. Like, and I'm sure they were trying to throw us off the scent, but it was like at that point, it's like no, it's clearly she's talking
Yeah.
about Helen Mirren, or I mean that's what Freddie says. He's like, I'm assuming she's talking about you. And I'm like,
Yeah.
even that's up in the air. Of like, I don't know where do we put this?
Yeah. Which sister specifically are
It's
you
clearly Helen
choosing
Mirren
to
because
talk
she's the
about
one
right
that
now?
bosses them around, but it's like
Yeah.
she's still more thoughtful about what they're doing than Lucy.
Yeah. There's a lot more intention with it and all that kind of stuff. Like his one is just like, okay, Helen Mirren's goal is to restore the worlds and all that kind of stuff. Lucy loses to punish, and then freaking what's her face? Athena's is to basically make everything pretty again and happy within the realm of gods. And I'm like, cool. I get why they would work together, but and I get like that they're doing like this is the traditional three sibling kind of dynamic where the older one and the middle one and the younger one. I'm like, it's so on the nose that I'm like, it doesn't serve anything. Because at the end of the day, I thought they would get Helen Mirren and Thea, or like Lucy Liu and Thea, to like work against each other. Like that's why I thought there was three of them. It doesn't even happen in the end. It's weird because it's like,
I mean, yeah, they are working against each other the whole time, but it's not like a showdown. But they are constantly working against each other.
well, I kind of wanted a showdown. Like,
Yeah,
that's why I was like, there should have been a showdown.
yeah. I don't. I mean, I don't know how if you have room for that if there's five other superheroes in the movie, but
Yeah,
I think it all stems from us recognizing that you don't need three of them. There's
yeah.
two of them, and because they're not all in, that's why they're gonna fail because they're not united like the Shazam family.
Well, yeah, and I like I like how, even like you said, in a movie so bloated with so many characters that have to have screen time, with five other heroes and all that kind of
six total, yeah,
six total, but five
plus
other
parents.
plus parents and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of character time, and it's funny because each character from the Shazam family side of things gets enough to do, and it's well written enough to be like, this is pretty strong on their side of things, right? Each character gets something identifiable at the end of the movie. They're like, this is what they're struggling with, and all of it stems with a little bit of that identity, like imposter syndrome that they're talking about. And I'm like, this is good stuff. This is really good stuff. And then you get to the villains, you're like, yeah, this is not hitting me well. I'm glad you articulated that.
I also want to say I really like Megan Good in this. Like the Marla character, I think that's her name, but the Megan Good version of it, I thought she played Darla.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I like that when she gets older, she feels actually I feel like everyone does a good job of playing what you would assume the older version of the kid is. But her, because she's so young, I love how Megan Good is truly playing it like a kid. And like the whole like, well, you went to the eye doctor. You made friends at the eye doctor, or like when she steals the cats, I'm like, that's such a good. She didn't do the right thing. She's like, I want cats. She's like, I'll take one, don't, but I'm taking your cats. And then when she gets home, she's like, no, it's the right thing that I give the cat back. Like, just like everyone's leaving, but she's leaving because she's like, nah, I think I went overboard with stealing the cat.
Her character stands out a lot to me because I'm like, I see this very, very clearly as a child in an adult's body. It's really good acting.
I mean, the other ones are close enough to teen and younger teen.
Yeah.
That like there isn't that much of a difference that needs to be distinguished, other than you understand that like I still think the strongest is the Freddy one. Like what's his name? Jack Dylan Grazer or something like that.
Yeah, Jack Dylan Grazer.
Scott.
Yeah.
That one is, I think that's perfect. It was perfect in the first movie, it's perfect in this. And also just I think Jack Dylan Grazer is the strongest actor of the kids.
I would agree with that.
Sorry, I meant in the Shazam family, not just the kids or the older way. Like he's the strongest. I think they gave him, rightfully so, a lot of the emotional stuff to carry.
Yes, because the funny thing is, like, Billy Batson like doesn't even get much screen time here. It's Zachary Levi doing a lot of the lifting for the character in
Yeah,
this, and that's it's a super uncomfortable thing because you spend so much time with Freddy as Freddy and still as Adam Brody, the superhero
well, they
version,
they
right?
front loaded at the beginning so that you can
Yeah,
see him as Adam Brody and not feel as much of a loss when he loses the powers, because
right.
you're like, well, it just means I get to spend more time with the more interesting. It's not a
Mhm.
knock to Adam Brody. Like, that's the point, is that Freddy is so interesting when he's not super
Yes.
powered, that he's got so many resources to be likable and um someone you can
Mhm.
sympathize with. He's just
Mhm.
so easy to relate to that when he becomes a superhero, it's cool and you're happy for him, but it's like I would also gladly spend all the time with Freddy, not in superhero form.
Yes. Yes. Versus like clearly nobody's interested in spending time with Billy Batson in Billy Batson form in this movie. Like,
So I would say in this movie, it feels more right to call out that it seems like different performances,
yes.
specifically in the scene when Freddy's talking to Anthea for the first time, and
Mhm.
Billy comes out. And he's like, "Oh, like I texted you. What are you doing?" I'm like, "All right, like we've had enough time of you being." It seems like from the post credit scene that they're saying it's been like 2 years of
Yeah.
him being Shazam. So like it should even out more now. Like it shouldn't be such. Before, I full heartedly believed that it was the right choice to make Zach Levi so lighthearted when he becomes Shazam, because that's the whole idea, is that this kid who feels powerless all the time finally has powers, so he
Mhm.
doesn't need to feel downtrodden anymore. Like this is what he wants, and that was the interesting thing of the first movie, was trying to bring him back down and make him an actual hero, and instead of just
Mhm.
someone who's like, oh yeah, pay me and I'll do superhero stuff. But like
Yeah.
I'm living my power fantasy right now. That
Mhm.
made sense. Now it doesn't make as much sense that Billy is still so upset.
Yes.
Like
I agree.
he
I
should be closer to what Zach is doing now. And I understand that there's still he should be more chipper as Zach Levi, but I think that he's way too sullen as Billy Batson.
I agree. I agree. And it's just like, okay, get it. They even said it in the beginning of the movie. They're like, all right, yeah, he's about to age out of the system. There's insecurity with that. And
Yeah, he has
I
issues. Like
do, yeah, he's got like genuine issues and all that kind of stuff. But
it's not
like,
like I'm saying, oh no, he should just be as happy.
it's,
I'm just saying the gap
yeah,
should be
it's,
not as
yes,
wide.
I completely agree. Like, the gap is huge. It's like, okay, dude, it's like, you're still dealing with all those like, and I get it, and this is what I like about the pediatrician scene in the beginning where he like goes through all the
Yeah,
childhood
he's like, that's not
traumas.
a little.
That's not a little, that's a lot of childhood
let's,
trauma.
let's deal
And
with this one thing.
yeah, I like how he was like, he's like, well, this is usually tied together with like imposter syndrome. It's usually tied together with childhood syndrome, childhood trauma, and the amount that he lists off, you're like, okay, it's almost like they're giving you a justification for him being so sad throughout this whole movie. But I'm like,
Well, I mean,
no,
I didn't even
no,
feel that way because I was just like, knowing the first movie, like, I mean, yeah, he's just listing what happened in the first movie. Like, I mean,
yep,
that's it. It's a lot, and it explains his. Because I don't remember it, and maybe you don't remember either. I'm just putting it out there. I thought a big emotional moment in the second or first movie was that he does call Rosa mom finally. Because in this movie, he stopped calling her mom, and like they make a
yeah,
point of like landing on like her being hurt when he calls her Rosa.
yeah.
And I'm like, oh, why are we doing this again? Like it's the one time I was like,
I agree. I'm
like
like, didn't we get here at the end of the movie? And like, maybe I'm like, as a defense mechanism, he gets like, oh, I'm aging out soon, so I'm going
right,
to call her
maybe
mom
that's what it
again.
is.
Maybe that's what it is.
I'll give them that. I don't know if they were thinking of that, but I'll give them that. I'll just
Sure.
trust that they thought like he's trying to protect himself right now because he knows he's aging out, and they're telling
Right.
him he's aging out.
Yeah.
Sorry, the
That's
kids.
what I suspect it to
Mary's
be. Yeah.
telling him that he's aging out.
Yeah.
Um,
And that Mary's sharing her experience too, and all that kind of stuff, and is justifying. It's like, no, I do have to work.
yeah, he's like, oh no, no,
this is
this
why.
like either I'm going to school or I have to work. It's not. I can't just hang around with you guys because you want us all to be a family. Like I
Mhm.
really liked Mary in this. I'm glad that they
Oh, I
got rid
love
of.
Mary.
I got they got rid of the whole idea that it's two different actors, because
Yeah.
I was just like, well, there's no point in them being different actors. She doesn't look any different. Like
I
before
agree.
it was two actors, now it's just the one actor. But like, I also like that they pivoted away from any kind of like flirtation that they might have had. Like, I like that it's just like, I know in the comics it's there, so
Right.
that would be comic accurate. But I'm just like, I really feel like doing this in the foster thing, like let them have their own relationships if that's what they're gonna do.
Yeah, let them genuinely be a family. Don't try to
Yeah.
do that. I mean, it especially because of the age difference and all that kind of stuff. Like
Yeah, I mean, yeah, she points out like I need friends my own age, like
yeah,
which I would have if you'd let me go to university.
yes, yeah. And when I heard that line, I was like, whoa, yeah, he's being way too controlling.
Yeah, and again, it it works with the thesis because he's
Yes,
holding on to a very
absolutely.
specific interpretation of that thesis, which makes
Yep.
sense, and that's his arc to learn what that actually means. Um, that everyone needs to be taken into account. But yeah, that part worked for me. But I was just like, oh, the mom thing again, which is
Mhm.
fine. And emotionally, it worked for me at the end when she's like, "Can you just show me Billy, like not in superhero form?" But I
Mhm.
was like, we don't have time for this. Like emotionally, it worked. I'm not saying that
I
I would
agree with
take it
you.
out because I was just like, I this is important, and I like
Mhm.
that they're connecting on a deeper level.
Mhm.
It's like, Din Djarin taking off his mask for Grogu or whatever. Like, I get
Yeah.
it, but I was just like, the timing of this really feels like they should get going. Like, we should bump this up in the scene.
I agree. This is the part of movies where I'm like, oh man, if you only realized someone else was drowning in the other scene,
Yeah, like
it's like you'd gotta hurry up right now. This is not that important.
it's like yeah, this is stuff that is good to have, but do
it,
we put it here? Like, I mean, it
it's
doesn't
yeah,
matter. Ultimately, as I said, emotionally it worked for me, and a lot, and that's
yeah.
kind of why I like the movie. That more often than not, emotionally, the stuff worked for me.
It works. It's just in a very awkward position because you're right. You're like, no, this needs to happen. But
Yeah,
does it need to happen right now? And you're like, well, I guess there's no other time where it would happen
it
because why
needs to
would we
happen before
follow
he goes off into battle. Like,
exactly?
it's just, come on, hurry up, please. Not
It's
this,
yeah.
not this aspect of it, but the scene as a whole. Hurry up.
It's almost like you wish someone else still had powers and was fighting them off while he was doing
Yes,
that. You know what
yeah,
I mean? As opposed to like, oh, literally everyone else's powers are gone
it's
now.
just on him. Yeah.
It's just on him, and you're like, and they haven't gotten the unicorns yet and all that kind of stuff. Where you're like,
I really liked the unicorns. I gotta say,
oh man, I went wild for
I
them.
love when
I
the wizard's
loved
like, yeah, but she's like, I love unicorns. He's like, they hate you, and I was like, what
it.
a weird thing to say. And then when he explained, I was like, okay, like,
But that is the funniest thing about unicorns is like in like their own mythology, they are so incredibly violent and
mhm.
exactly like how he describes. I don't think they're ever pictured like all black stallions and all that kind of stuff.
That
Like
visually that worked for me,
that
and
worked really, really well. I liked it. But like it's funny because like everyone when they're like unicorns, I'm like, they're like vicious, vicious creatures. And every time I've
and
seen a
I,
unicorn
yeah.
on screen, it has been a vicious rendition of it. Like, what was it, Cabin in the Woods, where they did it? I'm like, this is awesome.
Oh right, yeah.
This is really,
Um,
really cool.
and I liked that they showed you the monsters because they're like, well, what is the thing that monsters are afraid of? And it's like unicorns. And you
Mhm.
see like two monsters be like, oh fuck, the unicorns are here.
Yeah, that was really, really cool. It was really, really effective. That it was like a whole gang of them, and the kids just like I'm like, yes, this is awesome. Like they don't have their powers, but they're still doing something. This is
Yeah, and that
really, really
Darla wasn't
cool.
afraid because she's like, we got Skittles. That's like ambrosia. Like,
It's the
I don't
closest to
agree, but
ambrosia.
it's like it's just like I get her logic, and I'm happy for her that like
Yeah,
because Mary tries to step in, and she's like, "What are you doing? Just give them the Skittles. They'll like us."
yeah. I just like the logic that like, see, she got the Skittle thing twice in this movie, and the second time it was like, oh yeah, this clearly was effective.
Yeah,
this and I like the first time too. The
in the
in,
Skittles in the pants.
Skittles in the pockets and stuff like that. Her justification was like, yeah, she needs it. Look how cranky she is.
Yeah,
And
she's
then the
like, "Why do you
dad's
think I
being
put
like,
Skittles in her pants?"
yeah, and then the dad's like, yeah, okay, that I get you. I'm like, this is great. This is great parenting. It's like, no, I see what you're trying to do, kid. I appreciate it. Maybe next time
Uh,
let's keep it in the wrapper.
Yeah, it was, as I said, I really like the Darla stuff. I like the
Mhm.
Mary stuff as well.
Mary was
Uh,
great. I really, really like that actress, and I agree. It was like, oh, good, they're using the same actress. This
it's
is
yeah,
not this is not
I
uncomfortable
don't have an
anymore.
issue with any of the Shazam family heroes. I thought that they did a good job of setting up like yeah, like they're still individuals. You can't
Mhm.
just be like uh, just do it because we're a family. Like why
Mhm.
don't you lean into the fact that Pedro isn't good at dodgeball? Like we'll give you
Mhm.
like try and not I'm not saying make him good at dodgeball in that sense, but
Mhm.
just like don't just have that be like, yeah, you're just bad at dodgeball. Like just be like, well, what are you good at and what would make you want to like lean into this? The same way he
Mhm.
has that brief moment. I can't remember the character's name, but I'll look it up where he's kind of bored. The guy that's constantly like looking into the different doors to see where everything's mapped out,
Eugene?
and yeah, Eugene.
Yeah.
Exactly. When he's like, well, then there's a dragon. He's like, and now I'm all of a sudden in. And he's like, right? Because like on one hand, it's scary because it's a dragon, but on the other hand, it's a
It's a
dragon.
dragon. Yeah. That's exactly how I would feel. I'm like, oh my god, there's a dragon. Can
Yeah,
I see it?
yeah. I thought like they did a good job of teasing that out. And obviously for runtime, you can't have it for everyone, but like
Mhm.
that Darla gets to have her moment on her own. It's not like prompted by
Mhm.
Billy. It's just like, oh, I know how to help. I know
Mhm.
what I'm doing. I
Mhm.
also really liked the idea of Steve the pen and how like they don't think that Steve is just doing verbatim what they're saying. Like
Mhm.
when they were like sending the like bird letters and Helen Mirren has to read it, but it's just their conversation. And he's
Mhm.
like, no, it's cool, it's cool. He'll work on the grammar and everything. Yeah, he's not gonna put that part in. It's fine. I thought that was and then it just ends with, do you have Gatorade? Do we have red? It's like, what is Gatorade? Is this a weapon?
I do love how that was narrated and sent to her and what she had to read. I'm like, no, this is fun. This is
Yeah,
fun getting Helen Mirren to read this right now. This is the best thing ever. This is
like
so good.
stuff like that is really like that fun. I mean, I've been thinking about it the whole time. I'll bring it up now. I did not appreciate the first Wonder Woman scene because like I'm
Mm,
sure they're playing off of the Superman scene from last time of like cutting around the face, but I was just like,
it
you
hits
already in the
different.
trailers put that she's in the movie, so like
Yeah.
this is a very clear sign that you did reshoots because I'm the
Hmm.
one scoop I did know ahead of time was they're doing the same thing they did to Superman but with Wonder Woman, so you're not going to see her face.
Hmm.
And I'm sure they saw that that leaked and then were like, put her in the end, just put her. But I'm like, at that point, just reshoot this dream sequence
Yeah.
so
I'm
that
so
like,
glad I didn't watch too many trailers for this movie because I was legitimately surprised.
yeah, when it's the end, and I think that's
Yes.
the only. That's when again the marketing is like they were worried that people would
Yes.
think that they're just going to cut around her like they do in the dream sequence.
Hmm.
So they put her in the trailer, and it's like, well, now all I'm doing is looking at this first scene, being like, why are we wasting our time with this? Like, I get that
Hmm.
there's going to be a point where you see Jaimon Hansu's face, but like,
Hmm.
it still works if you establish that he was looking at Wonder Woman,
Yeah.
and then because that's how dream stuff works. Like I've had dreams like that where it's like it starts off as someone else and then their face changes. Like it's fine. Like
Yeah.
you would understand what's happening.
Hmm. Hmm. It's
You already you had her for a day or whatever. I'm sure you could have extended it to just. I just feel like that is the overhanging thing here of like, ooh, is it canon? Is it not? Is it? Or are they going to show Gal? If they show Gal, does that mean it's part of the Snyderverse? Is it DCU? And it's like,
Mhm.
you're already going to show her face. Just let this movie be its own thing at this point. Who cares?
Mhm.
And also, the mid-credit scene makes it pretty clear that like it's part of this. Like he's interacting with characters that are part of this new DCU.
Yeah.
We'll get to the mid-credit and post-credit scenes, but
Mhm.
like for now, just focusing on the movie. I just thought like, yeah, the Wonder Woman like cutting around her face was like, this isn't. I don't appreciate you're taking me out of the scene. Like,
It feels weird because it's just one of those things where I'm like, see, at that point, I legitimately still didn't realize who was there. I'm like, this is more along the lines of what I expected for there to be
yeah,
another hero's involvement in this movie. Um, but to a big degree, I'm like, is this disrespectful that they're just using her body, and then like
This is what I'm
it's
saying.
just
Just put her in. Like
yeah,
it's
it
very
feels
awkward.
weird. It feels very
Because
uncomfortable.
it's an extended period of time. Like the
Yes,
Superman thing was like, okay, cool, you're not going to see his face
yeah,
because we're
it was
just
an
do Henry
appropriate amount of
Cavill.
time.
But
Yeah,
like, but
but this is very uncomfortable. They're showing so much of her body, and it's just like,
and the
oh, we're
fact that like
objectifying
it's
her.
like,
This is not
oh, he's
great.
only doing because he's having like not actually, but like he's having a wet dream about Wonder Woman. So like it's all in a bad sense anyway. It's not like they're actually talking to each other. It's
Yeah,
just this is his fantasy, and it's like, oh well, no need to see her face when you can look at her body like this.
yeah. I like how in his fantasy he was talking about going steady with
Yeah.
Wonder Woman. It was really, really funny.
Another thing I don't think that Billy Batson would say. That
No,
seems like just Zach Levi doing his thing, but
I completely agree.
like I don't think that Billy Batson, as we know him, would be like, "Hey, would you go steady with me?"
Yeah. It's there's a disconnect there 100% in this movie, more so than the first movie. The
Especially
first
since,
movie, I don't think feel like there was a disconnect. Here there is clearly
yeah,
a disconnect.
especially since they show you a scene from the first movie where it's
Mm,
Zach Levi being like, "Oh, you think I'm this gee golly kid?" Because, "Oh, gee golly, Mister, guess I'm gonna
mhm.
have to break your like." It's like, uh, because this movie had such a wide disconnect, I forgot that he was more in tune with Billy Batson in the first movie. And I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, right, that was him mocking. Because I was like, wait, that's how he talked in the first movie? And then I was like, oh, no, he's mocking. He's aware enough to know that, like, he can mock the old G. Willikers kid. But in this movie, like, saying, can we go steady is like, I don't. I don't think that's what he would say. Like,
Yeah.
you're not actually two separate people. That's why I like the Darla performance so much because it's very clearly one
Mhm.
character
It's one character. It's one,
shared over two
yeah,
actors. Like,
two actors being very, very good and collaborative. It's
yeah,
kind of like when like the when you find out the behind the scenes of how like they did the in Thor 2 the Loki slash Captain America thing, how
hmm
they did that. It's like, no, I like this. This is really, really good. This is great acting stuff. But here it's just like, oh, you two aren't on the same page at all. Like
no.
this is
I mean
weird.
that comes down to direction. Like you got to rein that in.
I
But
mean,
yeah,
that's true, 100%. And yeah, what kind of scenes they're keeping, but like, yeah, they need a scene with Billy as just a little bit happy. He's just dooms and glooms the whole movie.
I mean,
I get
yeah,
why it's
yeah,
effective. I
because
get why.
what I would say is I wouldn't, other than I don't remember him saying go steady, but if he did, I would change that. But I wouldn't really change
No, he didn't say
Zach's
go
performance.
steady. I'm just using that term to
Okay,
describe it. Yeah.
okay. Well, then, yeah. Then I erase what I said earlier.
Mhm.
But yeah, Shazam. I wouldn't really change his performance.
Mhm.
It makes sense to me. It's just when Billy Batson, I guess his name's Asher Angel, like that.
Yeah.
Maybe he should try and be closer to what Zach's doing.
Well, that's what I mean. I feel like maybe there was scenes shot where that did show that, and then it just like
They
we don't
took it
have
out.
enough time. We have to take it out of the movie. Like this
Yeah,
is the highlights of what, and I'm like, that's unfortunate for Asher Angel if that's the thing. But like, and you're right. It ultimately does come down to direction. Like, but it does in this movie feel like they're doing two separate things. Whereas the Megan Good, Darla, those actresses have just gotten on the same page, and it's
yeah,
wonderful.
and I would say most of the
Pedro
actors,
too.
yeah,
Yeah.
paid all of them. Eugene, Pedro, and
Mhm.
again, Mary is the same person, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But anyone that's like there's an adult and a kid, I thought they do a good job. Unfortunately, not for like
Mhm.
Billy Batman. Um, I do want to get into the Freddie and Thea stuff
Yeah.
because I think it is just a testament to how maybe just me. I really like Jack Dylan Grazer as an actor, so
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
just thought like all of that really worked. And Rachel Zegler, like I like her as a person. I liked her in West Side Story, and she's definitely different in this than West Side Story. So I was like, okay, like that's cool. But she's like more of a new cinematic guy. And I'm not saying this to be like, so
Mhm.
she was worse. It was just like for me, Jack Dylan really like takes control of the scenes.
Yes.
Uh, and maybe it was written that way on purpose, but like I really I liked their relationship. I like
Mhm.
that early enough early enough on it's like revealed like oh no she's one of the bad guys,
Mhm.
or at least she's an antagonist. Like she's what she wants is the opposite of what you want. And that like you could tell she was there to like suss out who this
Yeah.
champion is,
Mhm.
but then she just genuinely liked him, and I like that. Like, so I'm assuming she knew he's the kid that saw the superheroes. I don't think that was an accident.
I'm
Guess.
that's what my guess is. That is my guess, is that
Yeah.
she had intel. She was like, this is the guy. We're gonna go after him.
He'll lead me to the, and
Yeah.
so like on the roof, I'm like, no, don't show her. But I was also kind of like, I hope he does show her. I hope she
Yeah.
sees. And I was initially bummed that he did it so that it was like, oh no, like I called him. I was kind of like, no, just be like, I am him. I want her to reckon with that right now.
Yeah.
That she has to see that you are him.
I do agree, because to a degree, I'm like, it feels like he would be hooked enough to actually be like,
yes,
hey, I'm him, to go
felt
that
like
extra
he was
mile.
like, I trust you enough to just show you I'm him.
As opposed to being like, I'm gonna try to take a call behind this thing over here, and the lightning bolt comes down, and you're just like, this is dumb now. Because
again, I was glad that it ended up that she still knew who he was. Like it wasn't like they left that sequence without her knowing. Like I was just like, okay, good.
That would have been terrible. That would have been so uncomfortable the entire time, because I'm like, oh man, they're making her look like a dumb 6,000-year-old character. This is not great. So yeah,
I do like that, as you said. I like that. I'm glad you pointed out that it does feel like in that moment, because of their chemistry, that he would genuinely believe this is someone I can just show
100%
that I'm this person.
100%, because like he plays everything physically so well, of his anxiousness, his insecurities, even the scene beforehand, how he was just like, no, I'm doing this, I'm not so cool, but like doing that in such a cool way, where you're like, I get why this girl in real life would be really attracted to this guy. He's got a great personality. I really like this guy. Right.
And I'm not saying this because she needs protection, because she makes a very clear point of like, oh, I was gonna kill those kids.
Yeah.
But like the fact that you didn't know I could do that, and you also knew that you weren't gonna be able to turn into a superhero, that you still tried to like take the hit from me, like that's great.
Yeah. And I agree with that. It's just like, he's brave in the sense where like the bullies that try to step in and like steal his thunder, get like the new girl's attention, that kind of thing. The way he just like,
and he still
insults them,
and like really, he doesn't even pretend like he's not insulted. He's just insulting them to their faces,
straight up,
like so smoothly interjecting too.
Yeah, and it's just like he does all this
like,
kind
you
of
can't
stuff.
Put me in there, then I'll smell like trash, and I'll be a trash human. That's your thing, guys. You can't do that.
Yeah, he does all these things, and I'm like, yeah, he's not afraid right now at all. This is really, really great. I like this for this character, and I get why she would be attracted to him.
Sorry, I was talking over you.
No, that's all right. Come on.
Yeah, sorry. But it was just in the first movie that there's more a sense of like, oh man, like what a shit life for him that they bully him, and then there's an arc of him gaining the confidence of having a friend finally in Billy. And then in this movie, I like that he points out like, just because you know cool people doesn't mean people aren't gonna bully you. Like it's that like the bullies are like, we just have to be more covert about it, but we're not gonna stop bullying.
Yeah.
And I like that new teacher introduction of Dietrich Bader, and then he's like, "Don't worry, I was like you when I was," and then they kill him. I was like, "Holy shit!" Like,
yikes! Yeah, that was shocked.
That brought back stuff that I liked about the first movie. That like, it's a kids movie, but there's some intense, dark things that happen in the first movie, and then this movie where Freddy has to watch a teacher that he likes kill himself. And there's nothing he can do about it in that scene, especially since he's lost his powers by that point. So he genuinely can't swoop in and save the teacher. He just has to watch that guy kill himself. And then Lucy Liu even says like, yeah, I forgot how easily they burst, like grapes. And I was just like, shit, like they really like, they don't show it, but then they explain it to you.
Yeah, and it's like, no, this is some dark stuff, because I'm thinking the entire time like, oh, someone else in the family is gonna swoop in and see that happening. Nope.
Yeah,
they give you the sound effects. They don't show you, obviously, but not obviously. They don't show you, but they give you the sound effect, and you're like, yikes.
And then the description, like following it up with a description, and then it's good enough already because of the way Jack Dylan Grazer plays it, that you're just like,
Yes.
holy shit, like look at this guy who can be cool in most situations. Just he's not phased. Like, or sorry, he hasn't like become, what am I trying to say? Desensitized to
Mm,
violence. Like he's just like, fuck, like that is terrible what just
yeah.
happened.
Yeah. He's it's great acting in this one particular scene, because through the whole movie they show you how like he wants to just constantly be in his superhero form, right? Obviously, he just doesn't want to be reminded that he's got
Yeah,
this
because
physical
he thinks he's
disability.
broken. Yeah.
He thinks he's broken. He's got he's got a lot of worth as a superhero. So obviously, they do a good job of being like, yeah, he's always on the radios. He's always trying to pick up like things, any excuse to try to fight crime, basically. And it's in this one scene where you in these two scenes in the hallway and then on the rooftop, where you're like, you finally get the sense of this is the only time that he's actually wanted to be in his body in this way, right? And there's so much excitement and anxiousness behind it, and then he gets traumatized in that way. You're like, this is some really great acting Jack is putting on right now. He's doing a great job, and he carries so much of the emotional beats of this movie. I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
he's definitely the strongest.
Because at the end, when he's like beating on the thing, and he's like, "No, it's supposed to be us. We're a team, and like it's supposed to be all or
Oh
none."
my god,
I felt
yeah.
that, and then at the end, when Shazam dies for a little bit,
Yeah.
and he's just like, "You asshole!" I love that. I'm assuming it's in the script, but if it wasn't, like the choice of not leading with like the leading with the anger, like just that anger
Yeah.
of like, "You asshole! Well, you can't die. Like you can't do this." I really
Yeah.
appreciated that. Like it made it hit hard, because I always say like, when people are like, "Who cares if people die in Infinity War? You know they're gonna come back." It's like, it, that's not the experience of watching a movie. I hope not
Hmm.
for you.
Hmm.
I hope you're able to be present enough to be like, well, how is this affecting the characters who don't know they're coming back?
Hmm.
And I think Jack does a great job of grounding you in the grief of losing your brother and your friend
Hmm.
like that.
Hmm. And the person that gave you hope, I mean,
Yeah.
this is Billy, like in the first one, like is his friend, pulls him out of that, also gives him the powers, pulls him out, like that kind of situation, gives him like something. There's a lot of emotional connection here.
Mhm.
It doesn't even matter that you're like, wait, where are the other children in this? It doesn't even matter, because Jack does such a good job of carrying those
And you can see
emotions.
them. You can see them
Yeah,
giving him his moment, because it's very
absolutely.
clear they are closer to
Hmm.
each other.
Yes.
And I like that even earlier in the movie when he's like, "Oh, like what a great song." He's like, "Yeah, maybe we should get tickets to this
It's a
concert." And he's like, "Well,
duet.
maybe
Yeah.
just two. Maybe just two. We don't need six."
Yeah.
And I like that Mary tells him like, why don't you just let him do his thing for 10
Hmm.
minutes by himself? Like you don't have to like hold him that tight. He's not
Hmm.
gonna leave just because he gets to do solo things every now and then.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
he just needs to know that he can do stuff on his own.
Yeah.
You're clipping his wings by being like, no, no, oh, we always do this together.
Hmm. Hmm. I like how throughout the whole movie, like basically every character is just telling Billy what he needs to do, because I mean every character is right, and he doesn't successfully do it. It's only until the end of the movie where no one tells him what he needs to do that he finally understands and he
Yeah.
gets it. I'm like, this is good. This is good stuff. I really really like it.
Um, Brief detour from Freddy, because I'm not done with, because I still want to get to when he's imprisoned with the wizard. But
Yes.
brief detour. Shazam. There's the scene. It's funny where they keep shitting on him because he doesn't have the wisdom of Solomon. But I'm like, the first movie is him being able to like sneak, and yes, he gets caught because he's a teenager, but like he's not a complete idiot either. Like they're really playing it up like he's just a doofus, and I'm like,
Yeah.
but he isn't, because he was able to operate
Hmm.
the way he wanted to for quite a bit of time,
Hmm.
like on his own. So he
Yeah.
he needs some level of street smarts. He can't be just an idiot.
Yeah, but I like that they give you justification in this one where everyone even calls him out, whereas it's like, yeah, you basically do what Mary just says anyways. Like that's what you do all the time. And it's just like,
I
okay,
that
I
didn't
can get,
ring that didn't
yeah,
ring true to me, because that to me was like, going against what I thought the movie was trying to show, which is
Right.
he needs to recognize that it's an actual team. So to lean on Mary, maybe lean is the wrong word, and maybe that's more what they should have called out. But to recognize that Mary would be the brains of the operation isn't a bad thing.
I agree, and that's why I'm like, why are they calling it out there?
That's what I'm saying. Like, I thought you were starting saying you like that, and I was like, I didn't actually like when they did that because it was like, if you're going to call him out for like exploiting it, sure, but you just said like, oh, you just do what she says, and I was like, but that's part of. If you guys look at him as the leader, that's a good thing then. That he's saying, I'm not smart enough. Mary, what should we do? And not trying to be like, take her ideas and pass them off of his own. He's very transparently asking her in front of everybody, what should we do? I thought that made sense, and that the movie was trying to push him to do that with everybody, not just Mary. To be like, this is your thing. Like, how do we do this? Like, hey, Eugene, you're constantly mapping things out, so where do we go? Or like, Darla, you're really into this. And again, they have a brief moment of it when they're like, oh, we need this one bit of lore, but Freddy's not even here, and that's his shit. Like, it was just like, he just needed to put it all together. But yeah, that didn't really ring true to me when they were like, hey, you just do whatever she says anyway. And I'm like, it's not even a bad thing. And like, it seems like that's what you would want him to be doing with everybody.
I agree. When they did that, I was like, this is good, but I don't get why they're ragging on it, in the sense where if he doesn't have the wisdom of Solomon, but he has the wisdom enough to recognize that he doesn't have the wisdom of Solomon, then he's leaning on other people that do. Like, that's a good leader. It's a collaborative leader, and it's not a dictator, right? Which is what you think he'd be doing a little bit more.
Like his dictator stuff is, hey, we're doing this after school no matter what. Fuck you.
Yes,
like,
and like, these are the rules. This is how we're gonna do it. We're gonna do a team meeting after every mission. All this, like, he sets that boundary of like,
my like, TSN rundown of everything. But like, that part, but like the whole, you just do whatever she says. I'm like,
I think is
this a problem for people?
I don't think that's a problem at all. Like, you have advisors for a reason, and it's just like, why would you not listen to them? It's just, if they have good suggestions. So I'm like, when they did, I'm like, this is kind of weak. Why would they brag on him for that right now? If he knows he's not good at something, then outsource it, and everyone's better off for it. That's actually a strength of a leader, I feel. So I just feel like it's them not doing that properly. They fumbled that a little bit, because I was like, this works against their thesis. But the idea at the end of the movie where he's like, okay, he figures out what he needs to do. He needs to stop making it about him, and he needs to support his other family members. And I'm like, that's good stuff. This is really, really good stuff. And this is why I'm like, there's a good movie in here. There's fumbles. There's a lot of stuff like Helen Mirren's character, like whatever. But at the end of the day, I see a good movie in this. Like, an enjoyable, fun movie. That's not a bad movie. It just didn't have... it's in such a weird spot, but I do like what they're
just
doing
choices,
with it.
But so back to Freddy. So he gets taken to the wizard cell.
Yes,
and
meets up with Digimon.
I'm honest with you, it got an out. Like, I laughed out loud with the running bit of the wizard not knowing his name. Like, I get, obviously,
I did
by the end. By the end, they make it clear it's not that he didn't know his name. He just, fuck you. But I
it's
like
just a Ron Swanson thing.
He's like, okay, freebie. And he's like, do you call me freebie? That's not even a name. He's like, got it, Jeff. Like, I laughed out loud at freebie. I thought that was hilarious. They just gave him a lot more to do, this movie, The Wizard, that is, and I thought it was great stuff. Or when he was doing the impression of like, we got to get out of here, and he's like, I don't even sound like that. He's like, oh, okay. He's like, you know what I mean? Shut up, because I want to sleep, and that's the only way you're gonna get through this.
He played annoyed really, really good. Like, I liked his character so much in this. And then that finally, like, when he gets all spiffed up toward the end, I'm like, this is great. Yeah, he's been locked up for a long time.
I'm an idiot, and when he was at the door, I was like, "Oh, who's this cool?" Like, I didn't.
You didn't
never crossed my mind that it was the Wizard. I was like, "Is this Nick Fury?" I genuinely had a brief second, like, "Is this Nick Fury?" It did not occur to me that it would be the wizard. Again, obviously, I'm happy it was. We
Right.
got to do more stuff, but I was just like, oh, cool. Who's this new person? Like,
Yeah.
I hope this is a cool new character.
I mean, to be fair, they like, yeah, because they took away the hair
Yeah.
and the beard and all that kind of stuff, and that was such a defining like aspect of what the character looked like that it catches you off guard. But I'm like, I've seen Digimon Hansu enough in like a lot of his like stills that I know who that is immediately.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is great. He got all
Um,
spiffed up and he looks fly as hell. That was cool.
but so they're in there and they're stuck, and I can't remember when uh Anthea, maybe she does it before he's in there, but the idea that we kind of were touching on, that she says to him like, oh, the most interesting or most powerful thing about you is you, not the
Mhm.
powers. And I think that obviously you truly explore that in this
Mhm.
section of the movie, where
Yeah.
it's his optimism and like his actual, well, I'm losing all my words today, but like his appreciation of all things like lore and knowing obscure things that helps
Mhm.
push them and give, and it's infectious because obviously at a certain point the wizard's like on board
Mhm.
with this as well. I also really liked when they were trying to sneak, and he's like, "What obviously has to be me because your knees crack." Because I heard it earlier in the movie. I thought it was good sense that like there's earlier in the movie you hear his knees crack, and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I'm gonna mention that." And then he does mention it. He's like, "No, your knees crack." And I was like, well, that was a good callback."
Yeah. It's a like that was something that I'm like, I like Freddy a lot because like everything that he's doing outside of superhero form is like showing you how competent he actually is and how he
Mhm.
steps up and how like he takes charge. Like I like Freddy in this one a lot. It's so good, and the fact that he's like him sneaking around with a crutch, I'm like, this is great stuff. This is not supposed to be comedic at all, but
No,
this is funny.
I mean, it's comedic when he drops the thing, like
Yes.
eventually, but like
Mm,
up until that point, I think you're supposed to be like, oh shit, like is he gonna do it? Is he gonna do
yeah.
it? Hurry up.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I think the stuff with him and the wizard and giving Freddy stuff to do to be a
Mhm.
hero individually is smart, and I really liked it.
Yep. Yep. And I also liked in that moment where they're like, they're doing the teenage love thing in the prison stuff thing when they're getting away, and then the wizard's just like, "Oh
Yeah,
my
he's getting
god!"
so
He's,
yeah.
he's like, "Why are we dealing with this
Let's
puppy love
go.
bullshit?" It's almost like this is weirder that she reveals that she's 6,000 years old and that they're doing this puppy love kind of crap. But it's funny that he's like, "Oh my god, this is terrible." I'm like, "Yeah, that's what I'm feeling at that point in time."
And
But
he's
there's
like,
a
let's
kids
go.
movie.
He's like,
Yeah.
thank you very much, goddess, but let's go. And she's like, yes, yeah, you gotta go. You gotta go.
Yeah,
Um,
he does some really great stuff in this movie. I like his energy a lot. It's fun.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
like when he also like, yeah, I totally I screwed up. I made the wrong decision choosing you. Why did I choose a kid? It was so fun that one brief second. I'm like, yeah,
Well,
anyone
it's
should be
it's a
picking this.
thing. I think it's why I like this. Well, spoiler, I like this movie more than the first one from memory. Is that like
Mhm.
I wasn't really on board for how long it took him to settle on a champion. I was kind of like, fucking just pick somebody already. Like it felt like way too much of the first movie was him hemming and hawing about who he's gonna choose, only
Yeah,
for it to be Billy Batson, where you're like, all right, well, if it's gonna
this
take you
was
this
dumb.
long to just choose whoever was in front of you, like what the hell are we doing? Like,
I mean,
um,
unless they're making a specific point about what procrastination does,
I mean,
which I could appreciate, but I don't
this movie
see that.
undoes because he's like,
Yeah,
no, I made the right choice, and I like that at
exactly.
least this movie is carrying that on. Is that like a lot
Mhm.
of the Wizards arc was like, oh man, I'm an idiot because I chose this, but I really like that ultimately he's like, this actually was a great choice because you're the only person that decided to share the power. You
Mhm.
didn't try and keep it for yourself. You understood that like this would be helping protect your family,
Yeah, it's
and just
and
more can get done now.
that pure of heart thing, that whole discussion. I'm like, yeah, okay, this is good. Remind him of this, and he reminded you of it. This is really good stuff. But up until
And
then,
I
you're
like
like,
that
yeah,
leads into what you were saying, which was the
Mhm.
wizard's pep talk being, I don't need to tell you what to do. Like you clearly have an instinct for this.
Yeah.
Like as you said, like it was when people didn't tell him what to do that he kind of rises to the occasion. And I
Mhm.
like that it's tied into the wizard's realization of like,
Mhm.
yeah, like I don't really have anything to offer because if it were me, I wouldn't have done this. And this seems like it actually is
Mhm.
a good idea. So
Yeah.
like let me not get in your head about that and just why don't you trust your instincts?
Yeah. I like that because from like a psychological standpoint, it's the idea of like stop telling people what to do and help support them to their natural conclusions, right? To
Yeah.
really, and that's what every character, and like he finally gets the ability to do that once his biggest insecurity is addressed, which is like whether or not he's going to have a home in a few months, right? His whole
Mhm.
thing, like that, and that's why I do like that scene with him and his mom
Yeah.
occurring then, because if it happened at that point, to be like, yikes, that really sucks. That really sucks that you're slowing it down now, but that you're like, oh, he suddenly feels like he has that family, that he belongs like truly and fully. And then this scene right now, he's going to sacrifice himself. Like
Yeah.
so I'm as awkward as it was earlier in the thing, it makes more sense than it would have there where emotionally there would have been a bigger payoff, but they clearly wanted Freddie to carry the emotions of that scene instead of the mom,
Yeah.
and that they made the right choice there, I think.
Um so yeah, we obviously have not been dealing with this in a linear fashion, but I
Mhm.
feel like we've discussed all the villain's plan really is just
It's pretty
at
straightforward.
one point they capture Helen Mirren because they think that they've outsmarted her, but obviously they have not. She
Yep.
gets into their place and finds the apple that she was looking for.
Yep.
um
It's
I
just like,
kind of
no.
I was obviously there's a feeling of like I don't think it was too easy for them to capture her. So I thought like, oh, maybe
Mhm.
they actually did it, and that like their problem was leaving her alone there.
Mhm.
Not that she was hoping they would capture her, but like I think they landed on this was all part of it. But I thought they did a good job of not making it seem like, oh, that was too easy for them to capture her. So clearly she wants them to do it.
Mhm.
Like she was putting up a fight. And I think the only reason I believe she wanted them to do it is because what Lucy Liu says, which is like, you could have just killed them. You were toying around with them. And it's like,
Mhm.
okay, that's where it came in. She was
Yeah.
toying with them, not she didn't go for the kill like she could have.
Mhm. Mhm. And I'm like, yeah, this makes sense. I even during that scene, I'm like, this feels like a Joker situation where she wants to get caught.
See, I didn't think that until they brought it up. I'm like, oh, I guess, yeah. So, like the Joker situation, I thought it was well executed in
Mhm.
terms of like, I was along for the ride.
Mhm.
I genuinely didn't think that she was thinking she would get captured, but
Mhm.
obviously that makes the most sense. Like, why not just be like, okay, now I'm in your like inner sanctum. I'm gonna get the shit I need.
Yeah, yeah, and especially because like I like in the beginning scenes where they show you like, oh, she's got the power of elements and like she can heat this thing up, and like immediately you see her hand like touching the thing. I'm like, yeah, this is
Yeah, you can see when she's
this.
in the prison
Yeah,
that she's like, "Oh, I can figure my way out of this."
yeah,
But I thought that was their mistake, was leaving her alone, not bringing
100%.
her
It
there in
always
the
is
first place.
though.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
always is. It's like, oh, you're gonna leave the villain alone with one inept guard. Like,
yeah,
it's why? It's just like
yeah. They just
why
completely
every
left her
single
alone.
time.
So like,
It's
but I
so
like that.
bad.
Obviously, they see that like you see her figuring out how she's gonna get out while they're talking shit to her. Like you see her being
Yeah.
like, "Okay, excellent. I'll just do this. You keep
Yep.
talking." Good. So yeah, I think all of that was done well.
Mhm.
Um, But again, like if it were me, like I would have just had like Rachel Zegler take the apple like through Freddy stuff. Like
Probably.
you don't need. I'm just
I
saying,
mean,
as much as I appreciate the scene, again, it's not it's not proof that you needed the Helen Mirren character. It's just
yeah.
they wrote it that way. Like there was other ways for this to happen that
Mhm.
probably would have been way more dramatic, like a true betrayal and between Freddy and Anthea and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
again, I don't want to get into let's rewrite these movies. It's just I don't I think that this is a strong point in a weird uh storyline, which is Helen Mirren's existence in this movie at all.
Yeah. I agree. It's just like they didn't give her in like it's not necessary to have three. You're entirely right about that. Just two daughters would have been fine. It would have been
Um
more cohesive. But
yes.
giving Freddie a love interest, You got to do that while being able to market
You don't have to, but it is an
credible
interesting
threats.
twist to make him still important to the story and
Mhm.
new things to explore.
Well, I feel like they had to, given the fact that they didn't want to write too much of Billy's story in this. They wanted to show you. They wanted to tell you not
Billy's
to.
story.
It is all Billy, but I mean, Freddy's stuff is stronger. That's what I'm saying. Like he's carrying. Like Billy's stuff is carrying the movie,
I would
but it's
definitely say
Freddy's
that
stuff that you're
because
around
of the
for.
actor, you feel Freddy's stuff more. But I do think
100%.
we've pointed out that the Billy stuff is still pretty heavy,
Mhm.
which is there's a ticking clock on how long he can keep this family that he obviously appreciates, and
Mhm.
everything is tied into that. So
Mhm.
I think that yes, it's felt stronger because of the
Mhm.
actor who's dealing with the other stuff. But
Mhm.
I would say they're given equal stuff. It's just
True.
we've pointed out that Asher Angel isn't given an opportunity to explore a lot of this, and also I do agree with people saying like this time the performances are off.
Mhm. I agree with that. I very, very much agree with that. Yeah.
Um, there's another thing I wanted to touch on,
Is there
but
any other character that we haven't really talked too much about Eugene or Pedro? But I mean,
well,
like
so the big reveal for Pedro, which I knew ahead of time, is that
he's
he's
gay.
gay. But it kind of made me laugh because of the way he
Yeah.
when the mom was like, "Oh, you're finally getting into it," he's like, "Yes, I finally see what's good about baseball." And
Yeah.
like when they cut to that, I was like, I like that. That's funny."
Yeah.
And just the kids' like delivery of that, and then obviously later on, when they're like, "We have to tell everything," and
Yeah.
everyone says I'm a superhero except for Paige, and I'm gay, and they're like, "Yeah, we know, man. Good for you."
Yeah. And
Uh,
I really like that moment. It was just one of those things where I'm like, I couldn't tell if there was like try like it was just such a good moment that it was like, yeah, we're gonna all stop right now and be like, no, the superhero thing's not the
yeah, we're
thing we
not
want to
gonna.
address.
I
We
mean,
want to
yeah,
address
they don't
this.
make it a big idea, like, oh, or
Right.
sorry, a big deal, like, oh my god, are you serious? Like, they're just like, we know, good, like, good. I'm glad you
Yeah.
felt. They don't say this, but what I'm saying, what is implied, is like, we're
Mhm.
glad that you were comfortable telling us now. But yeah, we know.
Yes. Yes. It's just one of those things too where it's like, see, I like where Pedro's character got like the idea of everyone supporting him to do his own thing
Mm-hmm.
in naturally and all that kind of stuff. Because he's coming out, right? Obviously,
Yeah, that's a
it
big
gets
deal.
handled in a very, very different way than a lot of other stuff. But like if Billy had that same like instinct to be like, no, I'm just going to support others as opposed to try to control others, then he would have been more effective family member. Like he's
Mm-hmm.
effective leader because of the stuff that we talked about earlier when he like no he relies on Mary's wisdom, like that's a good thing, like that the film works against itself when it in that scene.
Yeah,
But in this kind of situation I'm like, this is really really good stuff that they're just everyone including him is supporting Pedro in letting him reveal at the time that he wants to and all that kind of stuff.
yeah.
I really really like that. And I like
Uh,
Eugene's character a lot, how curious he is and all this kind of stuff. He's
and
really
that
fun.
he's like, we should be playing games because it'll help us with our. Oh no, wait, was it who's? Is it? Now I'm forgetting who
Mm-hmm.
wants to play the video games for team building. Is it
For team
Eugene or
building,
Billy?
I think it's Eugene. I think it's
I
Eugene.
like, yeah, it my memory was that it was like, okay, like they're getting into this because like they're trying to show that everyone is going to try and piece together a better Shazam through like
Mm-hmm.
their interests, and
Mm-hmm.
the reason they're being repelled obviously is one, they're individuals and can't just be lumped in together, but two, like
Mm-hmm.
maybe if he showed any kind of acknowledgement of them as individuals, it would help
Mm-hmm.
bring things together.
Yeah, but in that beginning scene where it's like with the pediatrician, it's like I got to kill some terrorists, and it shows him playing Call of Duty or something like that. When Eugene's character is saying like, "This is what video games does. It teaches us this, this, and this," I'm like, yes, those are all legitimate facts. You go, kid. This is really, really great. This is team building. Yes, good for you. I love it.
Yeah,
Studies do prove that, by the way.
and I like that Eugene when he's doing the like door mapping out, and he's like, you do not need to go on there. Trust me, don't worry about it."
Yeah.
But yeah, I think all of that is good. I think we've covered everybody. Did you want to get into the mid-credit and post-credit?
Yeah,
Or
let's
sorry,
do that.
no, wait, no. Before that, there's the actual Wonder Woman reveal, which is
Ah, yes.
I don't even really know where. I'm assuming they're in Greece. So
They're in the
because
realm of the
trailer,
gods. They're in the realm of the gods. We
so
know
they're
that.
in the trailer because they show you that Wonder Woman is in it. I was like, during the final fight, I was like, I mean, if any time
She would come in now.
you would come in now because you'd be like, hey, those are the gods. Like I know them. Like I get what's going on here. I can be of service here. It's like,
Yeah.
why just come on. And it's
I
confirmed later that
agree.
he did send that bird letter. So it's not like she's completely out of the loop on what's going on here. But like yeah, I just felt like this is weird because
Yep.
again, as we talk about these movies where everything's connected, Marvel and DC,
Mhm.
a movie that can explain the absence of other people joining in is not doesn't make it automatically a 10 out of 10, but it goes a long way for me. So for
Mhm.
me to be sitting there being like so she's really just not going to show up here. Like no one's going to show up. If you in a movie where you talked about all these people that can do
Mhm.
what you do but better, no one's going to show up and like stop these monsters from tearing
Mhm.
apart a city.
Yeah.
Like when it's the six of them, visually it looks like I could be a Superman and be like, oh, they got that covered.
Yeah.
But when it's just him alone, it starts being like,
Wait. Yeah.
maybe I should jump in. Like
Yeah.
maybe I should do something. I mean, also the movie works against itself because it's really pushing this idea that Philly hates them and that they see them more of a menace. And it's like, again, why isn't anyone stepping in to be
Yeah.
like, hey, like you can't just have like you major landmarks crumbling while you're on the job.
You can't just do this. This is
So like
huge liability issues.
it really felt like okay, I understand when it's six of them, maybe you don't need to keep adding on,
Yeah.
but like it also feels like if for 2 years people still think they're shit, something should
Mhm.
be happening here where people step in. And then at the end of the movie, it was like, well, it's just the one of him. And I think it's very clear what's happening. It's time to bring out a Wonder Woman save here. Like,
Yeah.
or
Amanda
not
Waller's got
have
to
me
get
not ever
involved
think
or
about
something.
her
Yeah.
or think about because it's like you're literally talking about Wonder Woman who is directly connected to this shit.
Yes. Yes. And it's not like the Peacekeeper thing where it's like, oh, they're going to reference them and they're
But
just
then they
going to
show
show
up.
up after the fact and they're
But
going
at
to make
least
a
they
joke
show
out
up,
of it.
right? Like
Yes.
you're like no, but like that movie committed to them showing up, and it's after the fact for a reason. Like it's
Mhm.
like they showed up to the fight, not like oh sorry, I'm showing up to the funeral.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
like
It's one of those things in the super world where everything is supposed to be connected like that and it's just like, okay, if the world is advertising this or broadcasting this on the news, then someone would have been able to show up. Like,
yeah, someone should be like, you know what, I'm gonna just help out because that's still people dying. Like
yeah,
it's not like funny accident. There's people dying.
like at least in Black Adam, they're like, okay, they're making a point of explaining why no one would show up until and then the just society of
Well, that movie half-heartedly got into the whole idea of like, hey, no, the people like Black
yeah.
Adam
Mhm.
and actually resent the Americans coming to like do something about this.
Yes, they actually
Versus
addressed
this
that.
movie where it's like
People don't like
they
the
actively don't like these superheroes. So like,
they actively don't like you. Yeah, I I, I like that. The dad for a minute is like, wait, are you the Philadelphia Fiasco? It's like, not that we're acknowledging that name, but yes, that would
Yeah.
be us. It was really good. It was really good
yeah.
stuff.
So that element, I just remember thinking like, well, how is she not showing up yet? And then we're at the funeral, and it's like, okay, she's gonna show up, and it's set up perfectly with the wizard
Mhm.
being sorry, there's no more magic, he's done, and Wonder Woman's like, no, I can help, and you're like, you could have helped earlier, but
Yeah,
like,
this is a
but I get that
really
you didn't have enough days to shoot that, but yeah,
it's good timing for that line. It almost makes me want to be like, I want to imagine her hiding behind a rock until he
Yeah,
says that
she's
line,
like,
and
wait,
then like,
wait till
oh, and
she's
I'm
like,
here, baby.
she's like,
Perfect
wait till they
timing.
say that there's no more gods, then
It's
I'll
like,
really show them.
yeah, it's like, well, perfect timing would have been during the final fight, but
Yes.
whatever. It's good.
But yeah, so she brings him back to life, and I like the visual of him having something in his mouth, and then him being like, "Oh, that was a spider. Wow. Okay, I'm really sorry about that."
Yeah, yeah. I like the idea of like, no, he's stepping up and he's shooting his shot, and it's the
Yeah,
most uncomfortable thing in the world.
I like
And
that.
I like how in this exact same scene, how Thea reveals because she's 6,000 and kisses Freddy, that the dad's like, suddenly this is problematic. And I'm
Well,
like,
yeah, and the
yes,
mom is
yes,
like,
it
"What is it
is.
with our sons and older women?"
It's true. But
But yeah,
yeah.
I thought, I mean, I don't really know why, other than I guess you're begging the question, why isn't Wonder Woman involved in this story about Greek gods? Because that's like her shit.
Budget, baby. Like
No, no, what I'm
that would
saying
be
is,
the only reason.
if it
Yeah.
were me, I wouldn't have put her in the movie at all.
I agree.
Like I get, and that's more about who knows what the future of this is and stuff, and it feels disingenuous. Like it
Yeah.
feels like, no, 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 come on, it's still all connected. What? Look, we put Wonder Woman in, and it's like, well, you kicked out her director, and I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing, but it's like
Mhm.
the third movie that she had planned clearly isn't going forward.
Yeah. And they
You're
try
not
to
really
run a
committing.
spear campaign on her too. Like they try to misrepresent what she did and all that kind of stuff. That
I'll
wasn't
be
fun.
honest with you. After 1984, I agree with the decision to check out
Let
other
her go.
options of directors.
I do agree with that
If they're
100%.
saying, anyway,
But
let's
don't
stop talking about
throw,
that.
yeah, but
Let's
don't throw her under the bus is what I'm saying. Either way, yeah.
Yeah, let's stop talking about that. I think, yeah, the Wonder Woman is like, okay, um, she's there. As I said, it definitely as a whole makes me not like the dream sequence even more, because it's
Yep.
like, well, you did have access to Gal Gadot then, like that's what you're showing me.
Yeah, this is very uncomfortable.
You're showing me you had access to her, so like I don't know
Yes.
what we're doing here. But
I would
that
have
happens, and then
yeah, like I was thinking about this. I'm like, this would have been funnier if, for example, they were on a school trip and Gal Gadot was like doing one of the museum like exhibits because she works in the museum in Paris, right? Like she's like,
because
oh
earlier he's like, well, you think she just wears glasses and puts her
yeah,
hair up and but no one notices it? Yeah.
yeah. I'm like that. I would have liked if that was the thing. And then Freddie was like, dude, doesn't she look like? And then he's like, oh, and like that would have been fun. That would have been really, really fun. But like they did this, and it makes it more uncomfortable
I
because
think,
if they didn't do this, the whole discussion of like she should have shown up at the final fight.
yeah, this is her
Completely
still
gets avoided.
contributing something.
Yep.
And in
Good for
your
her.
scenario, it's just like, well, so if she's around, why didn't she help? Like, was she like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, sorry, I can't. I got my shift tonight. Okay, I can't help out in Philly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think my thing stands, like I just was like, I don't understand why she didn't help during the fight, but it's whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's a messy choice, but it's there, and people get to see Wonder Woman again. Then it goes into the mid-credit scene, which is the Peacemaker team trying to recruit him for Justice Society.
Harcourt and what's his face?
Yeah, no, no,
I forget. I oh god. I guess
which
if
also
this is
was
really,
spoiled.
really bad. Oh, Kronos. Because I just want to call him Diebeard.
Yeah, you can't call him
I
Diabeard, my
can't
friend.
call him Diebeard, but that's what I
No,
remember. But it's Kronos. So Kronos and
I
Harcourt.
don't think it is.
It's not Kronos?
I don't
What's his
think
name?
so. To be honest with you, Economist.
Economist. That's what it is. Economist and Harcourt.
Yeah, so
I like
this
their
was
on
spoiled
screen
just from
chemistry.
following her on Instagram, where she's like, "Hey, thanks for letting me be part of the Shazam family." I was like, "Oh, okay. I guess that's something you
Yikes.
can just say before the movie comes out."
How's James? Well, James Gunn didn't care about this movie, so like, but yeah,
Anyway,
that would
so
be
she's.
uncomfortable.
I mean, but this seems like a James Gunn addition. Like, I don't believe he had nothing to do with this.
I think he had something to do with this.
Yeah. Anyway, so I mean, he's part of the Justice Society in the comics, so cool. I like that he's just like, why? Sorry, Justice Society, not League. Is this different? And she's like, yes. By the way, words work, it's different. And he's like, why? Why do they have two different names? And then
and he looks up the thesaurus. They make that really good gag of like Avengers of
But I mean, that
Society.
wouldn't be in the Thesaurus for Justice. So
It
like,
wouldn't be, but it's
so
just like really
again,
funny
not
that
a
they
great
just
gag,
landed
but
that joke.
it's just I like that he said. I don't know why, but I like that.
Well, I mean,
Uh,
like I feel like a few things that Shazam does really, really well, and like the meta aspect of whether or not he belongs moving forward, all that kind of stuff in the family, where that fits in, all this kind of stuff. And even this like the Meta Justice League thing and Justice Society, it's just they do a lot of meta jokes in this that I really, really appreciate. That probably won't be appreciated on future rewatches if there are any, but they did some good stuff. It was well
It
timed.
worked for the moment, but
Yeah.
it is definitely trying to plant a flag.
Mm-hmm.
And then before this movie came out, I saw an interview
Mm-hmm.
where Zach Levi wasn't as confident that he would continue because he was like, "Well, I mean, if it's me or someone else, at least you know that Shazam should continue on." And I was like, "Oh, so not as Gucci as we were saying before. Interesting." um. Anyway, yeah. So that's the mid credit scene. It's fine.
It's fine.
And then
He's part of the
there's
Justice Society.
oh sorry, one other joke I really liked was Darla saying motherfucker, but it gets cut off by the horse.
That was good.
Taste the rainbow, motherfuckers, is what
That
she says.
was
And I thought,
great.
I think if it wasn't that actress saying it, I would have been like, meh. But it's just funny that that actress in particular said it.
Yep. I agree. I agree. I
I
also like
taste
how
the
like
rainbow,
hardcore goes
motherfucker.
like I like how hardcore goes like Billy Batson. He turns around, and is like, what? I haven't heard of that guy before. I heard he's really
Well, he
handsome.
says yes immediately.
He's so
And it just
stupid. It's like,
reminded me of
we know who
Vigilante
you
and
are.
the Peacemaker show.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, this
Again,
is
why I was
great
like,
stuff.
this is definitely a James Gunn edition because that's exactly the humor from Peacemaker.
I completely agree. This is very, very on par with
Um,
what James Gunn would do. So I'm like, if he did have involvement in that, which I do suspect he did, I'm like, this is clever.
yeah,
This is clever how he's bringing Shazam into his thing.
And then what I feel like was actually the real post credit
Yes.
scene, actually done by David F. Sandberg, is the I thought this was funny. The people in my audience did not appreciate this, but just it's because I was like, wait, didn't we see this already? But he says, was it Dr. Sylvana is just like, it's been 2 years. What the fuck is going on here? and Mr. Mind is like, look, I can't move like everyone else. I don't really have legs. I gotta crawl everywhere. He's like,
it's really
like,
good.
anyway, like we're finally here. And then he's like, great, what's the plan? He's like, oh no, sorry, one more thing. I thought that was funny.
It was great.
I thought that was some good humor and trying to keep what I said after the first movie, which is even if it's not connected, I think this is still a good world to explore. You've got the 6 heroes. That's enough for you to be like, yeah, like let's just explore them like their own like Guardians of the Galaxy thing of like they don't really ever have to connect to anything. They're earthbound, so it does, but they don't really have to if you stop bringing in people like Gal Gadot and stuff. But like, I was just like there's still this going on. Like Mr. Mind and Dr. Sylvana are still kicking around. That's interesting. I thought it was funny, but the guy beside me was like, okay, whatever that was, and walked out. And I was like, oh, I guess I'm an idiot then, because that worked on me.
It was fun. It was fun. It was kind of like that. It felt like that post credit scene that in I think it was like Far From Home, where Captain America at the very, very end is like, you waited in the post credit scene. It wasn't worth it. Yeah, Homecoming. It was like, no, I like that. That was a really good.
Except for this actually pushed things forward that like I can expect that Dr. Sylvana could still be a part of something later.
Yes.
It wasn't actually just a nothing scene.
It wasn't nothing, but it was like, no, it's showing you something, but it's showing you it's in limbo. But I'm like, this is kind of really good.
That they still have intentions.
Yes.
Whatever.
Like, and I'm like, and I'm like, this is a good meta joke too, because I'm like, yeah, this franchise is in limbo. And I'm like, this is really, really good. But I completely agree. The mid credit scene with Hardcourt and Economist, I feel like that has James Gunn written all over it, because like, especially when he talks about the what he's doing with like gods and monsters, it's like, oh, okay, cool. You can see the gods and monsters in this. That makes sense. That's a logical leap.
There were gods and there were monsters in this movie. Yeah. It's time to rate this, I believe. What would you give this?
Oh, I'm surprised I'm giving it this. Oh, it's an 8.
Oh wow. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
It's got a lot going for it. It's
I
an
respect
underdog
that.
movie. I like an underdog movie, and this actually delivered, and it's more.
Before you keep going, so I can give my rating.
Yeah, for
I'm
sure.
gonna give it a 7.5. I think it's a strong 7.5. But
Yeah,
yes, continue on with your thing.
I just felt like the imposter syndrome thing. I'm like, oh, they fumbled that a little bit. They set it up. They didn't really go anywhere with it. The Helen Mirren thing, like you said, absolutely it felt weird to me. Couldn't find the words myself, but strong performances, except
Yeah.
for the Billy stuff, which is not his fault.
Yeah, I don't even say like I can't even be like, oh, that was a terrible performance. It just wasn't a performance that matched what everyone else was doing.
Exactly. I'm just like, he wasn't given the opportunity. I don't think it's like a situation where I'm like, can watch a terror raid movie. I'm like, no, this is legitimately bad. This is just a situation. I'm like, no, he's doing his best with what he's got, and that's not his
Um,
fault.
all right, 8 from you, a
Yep.
7.5 from me. Yeah, I mean, I see people being like, this movie is no good, but I,
I
much like
disagree.
Ant-Man and
Hmm.
the Lost Quantumania, feel like this was a satisfying story in terms
Yeah.
of having fun at the movies. I don't think
Hmm.
that um it was flat. At least, like, I think we can agree, like, the stuff that was interesting really popped, and then yeah, they made some questionable decisions about
Hmm.
many things that we've already discussed for the last hour and a half. So yeah,
Hmm.
uh
But
yeah.
overall, it's an enjoyable movie. It's not like I'm not gonna bring up another movie as an example because I don't think that's fair. But an enjoyable movie, and I had fun, and I feel like people really need to check their expectations, and they'll have a good time with this. They will. But I get where they're coming from. It's just not knowing whether or not it's going to fit in. But I do wonder if now that people are talking about the mid-credit scenes and stuff like that, whether or not people will actually be interested in seeing it to be like, oh yeah, I can see how this fits in with James Gunn's new plan or whatever. But we'll see. Because I had only a total of like 8 people in my screening.
Mm.
Made
Yeah, it
social
wasn't.
distancing very easy.
Yes, I'm always happy when there's low numbers in the theaters because I do not care how much money these people make. I just want to safely see movies that I like.
Yeah.
But yes, yeah, was not a packed theater for me either. But
Mhm.
as I said, I don't care about this.
Yeah.
It's whatever. But yeah, Shazam 2, Fury of the Gods. It was
It's a
not as
surprising
bad
hit.
as I've heard other people say,
Yeah.
but also I feel like people are just don't care about it versus
Yeah.
the other movie that we recently did where I was like, what are people like shitting on this movie for?
Hmm. Hmm. Now, my uncomfortable thing was like, I really was hoping, I'm like, I really hope they don't do a Black Adam post credit thing. Because I'm like, that would have been so uncomfortable.
Oh. Well, I think if you were paying attention, you knew there was no danger of that happening.
Yeah. Yeah. But I was like, don't don't do it. Don't, because
There
I
was
had heard so little rumors. I didn't even watch all the trailers for this. I'm like, the entire time there was anxiety.
no, but you
I'm
saw
glad they didn't
that
do it.
The Rock publicly was like, I'm not a part of this.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, I know, but the idea that the character could still be like what they did with the suit. Either way, glad there was no mention of it. There was a visual thing that they did with the red suit that they turned it black with the battle damage in the end, where I'm like,
Yeah.
this is
Well,
kind of
we
visually
talked about
cool.
that before, that
But yeah,
they remind you of Black Adam with his black suit and then
yeah,
remind you of Man of, or not even Man, Batman versus Superman when he's running
mm-hmm.
at the thing that's going to kill him with his spear.
Yep,
And you're like, oh, okay.
yep. It's
Luckily, you have Jack Dylan Grazer to bring you back into the world of this movie instead of other people's movies to
yep,
like make that okay. But
mm-hmm.
when I saw it in the trailer, I was like, yikes. Come on,
Yep,
guys.
yep.
Anyway,
Not great.
that was Shazam Fear of the Gods. We
Mm-hmm.
liked it. Um
A lot
more
more
than
than I
other
thought I
people.
would. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for listening, everybody. We're part of the That Shelf Podcast Network with other great shows like Bad Gay Movies, Black Hole Films, Contra Zoom Pod, other great shows. So please go to thatshelf.com. You'll find those shows, our show, more shows. If you want to hear older episodes of Spoiled Rotten, go to tdfeverything.com/spoiled rotten. Our email is spoiledpodcast@gmail.com. Our Twitter and Instagram is at tdfspoiled. So you can hit us up there. We're on all the podcast platforms. So please rate, review, subscribe, share, follow, do all the things you need to do. Really get the word out there. It would be very helpful. And we're going back to doing Monday episodes. So I think the next one is our Aquaman revisit.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be next Monday since we're done doing The Last of Us. But yeah, we'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.